Hello, welcome to Math for All, where we strive to make math creative, curious, and inclusive for everyone. I'm Molly Volke.
And I'm Heidi Sipnani. Thank you so much for joining us. We are really excited for our guest today, Sue OConnell, and she is going to talk to us about how to make math more meaningful for students.
Yes, we are very excited. Before we get to Sue, I want to ask everyone if you have subscribed to our YouTube channel. It's Math for All on YouTube, and we also have a Facebook page. So if you're watching, you're probably watching on our Facebook page. Please follow us. And I have the pleasure of introducing Sue. Sue OConnell has years of experience as an elementary classroom teacher, math coach, district school improvement specialist, and math speaker and consultant. She is the lead author for Heinemann's Math in Practice series, as well as the lead author for their new Math by the Book series that integrates children's literature into K-5 math lessons. Sue is also the author of such titles as Putting the Practices into Action and Mastering the Basic Math Facts. Her books support the teaching of K-5 mathematics, and she is particularly focused on instructional practices that support the development of mathematical thinking. Sue is a frequent speaker at math conferences and is director of quality teacher development, providing on-site professional development for schools and school districts across the country. So let's bring her in.
Hello.
Hello. Welcome. We're so pleased to have you here today.
Oh, thanks for inviting me. I'm happy to be here with you.
Yes. Excellent.
We have been using your books. Anytime one of your books comes out, it goes into the cart and we have it and have used them for so long. So we're so excited to.
Oh, that's so nice.
Thanks. Heidi is a bit of a bookaholic. So yes.
A little bit. And my picture book collection is a little larger than most.
Much larger than mine.
If you can see some of the shelves behind me, you can see a lot of the picture books that I own too.
No.
Yeah.
We were just really, really excited about you coming on. So we'd love to start with, what is your math story? It helps people watching, if they're not familiar with your work, know a little bit more about you and how you came to math.
Well, I'm not sure how far back to go on this, but as far back as I can remember, I have always been good at math, but I cannot say that I ever really loved math class. It was numbers. It was getting right answers. I could do it. I got A's in math, but I never really loved the subject. There wasn't much to love about what went on in the math classrooms that I was in. Even through high school, I took every math class you could take, from, Algebra 1, Algebra 2, geometry, trig, calculus, all kinds of math, and didn't even realize until I became a teacher how little of that math I actually understood. And again, got good grades, could do it. And now I attribute most of that to my memory. I just remembered how to do the things that my teacher told me to do. So when I became a teacher and I was trying to teach students how to do math, what became very important to me was that they understood the math that they were doing. I didn't start as a math specialist. I was an elementary teacher with reading certification. But I had a principal that said, do you think you could help us with some math in the building? We had a lot of teachers who weren't comfortable with math, which a lot of K-5 buildings have. Could I do some PDs, support the teachers, do some school-wide programs? But this was all in addition to still teaching my class. That was kind of the way it was at the time. And I did it, and I loved it. And that was really how things got started. And then I ended up having an opportunity to be in a math teacher leader program, which this was in the 80s, so way before when math coaches were popular. and became, a coach in several elementary schools and, district-wide support, and have loved doing it ever since. And I think a lot of it was prompted by my own experiences, that here, even someone who was good at math really didn't love it and didn't understand it. So what about the people who were complaining they weren't good at mathematics? What must that have looked like and felt like for them? So that's really kind of guided my work throughout the years, and it still guides my writing and my work with schools and districts, my work with teachers.
Interesting. So do you think that you were asked to do that because you were doing things in the classroom differently than other teachers, or were you doing things differently than other teachers that it kind of spawned your principal to ask you to step out of your comfort zone?
I was doing things a little differently. And this is sort of the, talking about our colleagues that inspired us and all. This was in the 80s, and Marilyn Burns was just beginning to write and be out there. And I remember getting About Teaching Mathematics by her, the first edition, and trying some of the things in those books and going, oh my goodness, this is fun. The kids were engaged. They were talking. We were doing things so different than what our textbooks were showing, and what I learned with. I started teaching the way I was taught. We turned pages in a textbook and we did worksheets, and it was about speed and it was about right answers. And here comes Marilyn Burns with this, let's, do these dots and connect them and see how many triangles and all these, and it was really new and different, but it got the kids engaged, and really thinking and problem solving and talking, and really changed my ideas about what mathematics was all about.
Yeah, she has a way about her, doesn't she?
And, we have all benefited from that and learned to do differently. I think that's, the bigger issue. It wasn't that, my teachers when I was younger, or the teachers that we work with now. It's just like knowing different ways to do that, and then seeing students latch on and have success.
Yes.
With that, in ways that we didn't. I think that's what we are all looking for, is for our students to feel like they can do and be successful and make connections to. And that's so challenging. It's challenging for a lot of the teachers that we work with as well, just to have those opportunities to make those connections and see things in a different way than the way that we learned.
And I saw that and I felt that in my classrooms. And for the first time, I felt like I felt joy in teaching mathematics. Like I was looking forward to the time of day when I was teaching mathematics. And then not long after that, 89, the curriculum and evaluation standards came out from NCTM. And all of a sudden they're talking about problem solving, communication, connections, representation, all of these things that then just elevated and changed math. But again, it kind of fit into that whole idea of maybe we haven't quite been doing this, in the best way. Maybe we need to refocus the way we're teaching mathematics and have a different set of goals.
Well, interesting, right? Because you're talking about 30 years ago, and here we are today, still doing this work. When we go into classrooms and work with teachers, we're often working with teachers who are fairly traditional.
Absolutely.
And speed and answer getting and correctness are really still the focus in many, many, many classrooms.
I was just on Twitter about an hour ago, and there was something, someone was quoting a couple things from Steve Leinwand about change and how difficult change is and what you need for change to take place. And, you think it's been over 30 years since NCTM came up with this new vision of mathematics. Surely we'd like to think that we've all embraced it by now. But you're right, I see the same thing. I go into classrooms and I see wonderful teachers and math coaches who are doing incredible things. And then I see very traditional teaching. I see textbooks, I see worksheets, I see speed drills, as if none of the last 30 years had happened. And somewhere we're missing this this communication, or there's a group of us that that have been doing this a long time, but we forget that across the country there are lots of teachers that haven't had these conversations. And when you get in there and you have the conversations with them, you begin to see them change and light bulbs go off. Just like happened to me when I started working with activities from about teaching mathematics, or started playing around with the new NCPM standards. You see it, those light bulbs go off, but it amazes me that those conversations haven't happened in many places after all of this time.
Yeah, teaching is such an individual sport, right? I mean, you can go in your classroom and just do your own thing for your entire career if your building allows you to do that. And I think it changes hard and long, and in particular for teaching, because it's so individual.
Well, and mathematics and attitudes towards mathematics, you figure we've got teachers who were taught, in traditional ways. And then if they don't feel comfortable with mathematics, if you're not comfortable with something, you're not going to take a risk. Correct. You're not going to try new things. And a lot of what we're talking about today is taking a risk. It's throwing problems out there, not knowing what kind of solutions kids are going to come up with, asking deep questions where who knows what kind of answer they're going to give you. And you have to be able to think on your feet and feel comfortable that you can respond to them. And if I'm not feeling like I'm confident myself in math, then I don't want to take that risk. How many primary teachers do you hear still saying, I don't want to teach math above second grade because I don't want to teach, beyond second grade because I don't get the math.
Yeah, they don't want fractions.
Yeah.
So it's if you're not confident and you don't love it, or at least like it,
right?
Are you really going to be a good teacher of mathematics today? So that's been my big push. We have to do activities, get teachers to get that light bulb going off, saying this is kind of fun, and I do get it, and I'm kind of liking it, because if we can get them thinking that way, then they will go in their classroom and get their students thinking that way. But we have to get it first within the teachers.
Yeah. It is interesting, because you said something in the beginning that rang true for me. Is I didn't know what I didn't know until I started teaching. And it was kind of paralyzing to realize, like, I was a middle school teacher to begin my career. And I couldn't believe how much I didn't actually understand.
Right.
I could do it.
Right.
I could perform the mathematics, but the understanding came with a lot of conversation with many teachers in my building, but in particular, one teacher who was my mentor would sit for a long time with me too.
Well, and for that generation of teachers where it's changed, like in the past, if you could do it, you were fine, because all you had to do as a teacher is stand up there and show them how to do it.
Right.
But this generation of teachers, if we're trying to develop thinkers and communicators and problem solvers, then we can't just tell you how to do it. Now I have to help you understand. And how do I do that? I don't understand it. So what fear and anxiety that puts in teachers.
Yeah,
absolutely. And
so what do? You go back and you teach traditionally.
Yeah.
That has been, I think, the thing for me as someone who had math anxiety, up through adulthood and still occasionally. And then the teachers that I work with, and that's my area of research, is in teacher math anxiety and elementary teachers. And it is so prevalent, and it's so something we don't talk about because we don't want to admit it. We don't, like, it's embarrassing in some sense. I think for some of us in that, like, that while I can do it, do I have the ways of teaching it? Do I have the understanding? I did not early on. And so it was like finding that and being willing to talk to others in those situations to say, okay, yeah, this is, I am uncomfortable teaching this. And then what do I do about it? And being able
That's
to
why we need math coaches and conversations and all of that to bring all of that out. You said something really important, the idea of being embarrassed by it. No teacher should be embarrassed by not understanding the math. That goes back to their teachers. Their teachers didn't help them understand it. It has nothing to do with you. It's that old way of just, let me tell you what to do and here memorize the thing did not work for many people. So we have to move it away from, don't feel embarrassed that you don't get it. The thing we need to do is think of ways, did anyone say anything to you that you think, why didn't my teachers say that to me? I would have gotten it if they had just said it in that way. Then that's the way you want to say it to your students. You kind of pay it forward, do what would have helped you get it. But it's really difficult if you've got that anxiety. And like you said, it's super prevalent.
It takes a lot of conversation. And I really believe it's years of not only learning, but unlearning a little bit.
Yes.
I mean, you don't want to throw out everything you learned, but if you had learned in a different order, things would be a little bit easier for you.
Yeah, I think it's relearning mathematics, but this time for understanding. We learned mathematics for efficiency. We learned mathematics for procedures. Now we have to relearn it for understanding. And the thing is, that's the foundation. If we can relearn it for understanding, didn't you ever have those experiences? I mean, I'd stand in front of a group of students and I'd be talking and all of a sudden this light bulb would go off in my head like, man, that's why you do it that way. I never realized that. It was like I was talking and then all of a sudden made some connection in my head like, oh my God, that's why you do that. No one had ever gotten me thinking about it in that way in all my years as a student. But as a teacher, when I was talking it through, the light bulb went off and the connection was made.
I think I still have some of those moments, now, especially.
Absolutely.
I'm typically work with K-8 teachers, and I've been working with some high school teachers, and that math is, although I did it and I was a math major and all of that, I don't practice it very much. So for me to continue to have those aha moments is also humbling and puts me back into the place of where teachers are. Well, I guess we could talk about this for hours and hours. So
we just do want to talk about that, but it leads really well into the question.
It really does. It really does.
The question is about building understanding, and that's the goal: is to help our students make sense of math, understand the math they're doing, and we know now there are research-based practices for that. We know when we talk about things, we understand them better. So we want lots of math talk. We know that when we visualize, we want lots of models. Often that understanding, happens when you're modeling and visualizing something. We know we want lots of questioning rather than telling. We know that when you step back and you ask questions, understanding develops. But another thing that I think really supports understanding in mathematics is context. And that comes from my experiences of learning mathematics completely out of context. It was numbers, it was equations, it was procedures, and I had no idea what any of those meant. And a context supports kids to understand the math that they're doing rather than just manipulating numbers. So I think one of the things we want to think about in the K-5 classroom and beyond that, but my expertise is more the K-5 range, is how do we provide context for students? And the other thing, just as an aside here, it's also going to bring so much more fun and engagement into the, not only just understanding of the math they're doing, but wow, does it change the energy in a classroom to have context? And I guess there are some categories of context that I think about. One is word problems. When I was in school, the word problems were at the bottom of the page, They were after you learned all and there was one of them,
Yep.
too. And sometimes the teacher even said, you don't have to do those.
Yep.
Those aren't that important. Today we say, start with the problem, because that tells kids the context for what they're doing. It makes the equations make sense, because now they're thinking of them in essentially a story, that contextual problem. I've always done lots of things with real data. I love pulling in, a menu and using the data off the menu, the price to get into a local amusement park or something fun for kids to do in the area, sports statistics from a team that, is the local team, and all of a sudden, kids are really engaged because of that real world piece. We've seen in the last couple years the power of pictures as a context. You look at that. I hope everyone knows the website, the ntimages.weebly.com, the number talk images from Canada. Wonderful pictures that you put those pictures up, and that context of cookies on a baking sheet gets kids talking about multiplication, distributive property, all kinds of things that were properties or rules, and now they see them in photos. And those are quick number routines that we're doing all over the country now, using a photo context to connect it to the math. All of those things, look the way they've livened math classrooms.
For sure. I think one thing that I have found that I can bring to any classroom and have kind of buy-in and success is which one doesn't belong, which is a lot of the context like you're talking about with comparisons and pictures. And I always start with something that's a picture because it's so user-friendly.
Pulls kids right into it.
Totally.
And then makes them want to talk. We've got all those other pieces, the visuals, the math talk, the reasoning, all of that stems from that context. And then, certainly one that I've been really focused on lately is the children's literature. And the contexts we can find in children's literature are just amazing. And we know what a story does in a math class. You open a book, you just show a cover of a book, and you've got the kids' attention. And they're ready to talk about it and share their own similar experiences and get into what happens with the characters. And you have them. And taking that and jumping into mathematics is just an incredibly powerful launch to math lessons. And wait for kids to see math in the world.
Well, and make a connection between the subject areas, so it's not solely we only read and reading and we only do math and math, but that there is a connection between the two, because that was never a part of our experience or
not
learners. So there was never that it was you're a reading person or a math person. And I think for teachers who do still struggle with math anxiety, if you have the reading background, and that has been your specialty, which often it is for elementary teachers, you have those skills of questioning and making connections that you've honed in the literature sense that you can bring to the math table. And we just have to help them see that those things cross over and apply. And we're still looking for that discussion in math class that we would normally just designate for ELA time.
Right. Heidi, that was one of my big reasons to want to do this Math by the Book series, because I saw so many K-5 teachers that saw themselves as literacy teachers. And they felt really confident with literacy, but not at all comfortable with mathematics.
Mm-hmm.
And there are so many connections that teachers don't see between
Mm-hmm.
the teaching of math and the teaching of literacy today, because literacy now is, literacy has always been about, thinking and comprehending and problem solving and interpreting, but now math is too.
Mm-hmm.
So if we could, I thought it was a good entry point
Mm-hmm.
for a lot of elementary teachers to say, let's start with what you love with a piece of literature. And let's do some of the things you love doing with that literature and show you how you can expand those and actually be teaching significant mathematics,
Mm-hmm.
in with a very similar style and teaching strategies.
Yeah. No, I think it's just so powerful. And just, even for pre-service teachers, when we think about teachers who are coming into the profession, we still take so many classes in silo in elementary and, education, or even in secondary education, which I was in, there were definite divisions between the two and the required courses that you needed. But having a course or using math by the book in a pre-service classroom, I just see that as being such an amazing opportunity for students before they get into the classroom, or for student teachers before they get into the classroom, to see, okay, I can make these connections and it does not have to be so separated.
Right.
I'm anxious to see how that it starts to play out in colleges. My daughter is studying to be a teacher, and she's only a freshman, so we don't have too much experience with one semester under our belt, but she's already taken one math class. And so I'm anxious to see what else, is included in this program, or at least I can see what is included, but how it plays out in the classroom. Maybe, Sue, could you tell us a little bit about Math by the Book? I know that that's brand new. Can you talk to us about that?
Sure. Let me just back up one minute to say this isn't the first time I've really explored the literature connected to the math. I've always felt like that context piece in that literature was important, but this is when we pulled it into John Sangiovanni and I did it in Mastering the Basic Math Facts, where every math facts set we began with a literature link. And what we heard from teachers over and over was how much they loved those literature links. So then I moved to Math in Practice, and that's more that is meant to do all of what we were talking about tonight. It's like a coaching tool for K-5, where each grade level, it presents all of the standards and ways to teach them, and that are engaging and interactive, and models and math talk and question and context and all of that. And so we scattered some literature lessons through there. And again, we just kept hearing from people, I just love those literature lessons. So that feedback, the way teachers embraced any lessons that connected to literature, because elementary teachers love children's literature, the way they embraced that, and the way that we knew that it was really a great entry level, like we talked about just a few minutes ago, for teachers who might be a little less comfortable with strategies for teaching math. I really wanted to do a series just on that really did the literature links. So that's what Math by the Book is. So it's, we decided to make it grade specific, because I think that's what really is going to help teachers. If you are a second grade teacher and you open up that book, we put 20 pieces of literature at each grade level linked to 20 math topics. So what you're going to find in the second grade book are 20 math topics you are teaching that year.
That's
which
amazing.
is different than the fourth grade book, which will have 20 math topics they are teaching this year. And then we needed to go out and find literature that could give us a context for those topics. And honestly, that was the most time-consuming part of it for me. I spent hours upon hours, weeks, months, finding, because that's 120 pieces of children's literature across K-5. And I was really determined not to have the traditional pieces of literature that were written to teach math. There are some of those in there, because some of them are very good.
Yes.
But some of them are not so good. They put the equations right in the book. They tackle too much math, and you think no one is ever going to teach all of this in one sitting. What I was really looking for is if you were teaching about volume, where do you use it in the world? Just find me a story that makes me think volume, and I can use that. So we found this story, The Crayon Man, the true story of the invention of the Crayola crayon. And it talks about all the trial and error, but also it shows the packaging, the box that the crayons were in. And I was like, that's it. That's volume. We need to know what size box will fit 8 crayons or 16 crayons or 24 crayons. There we go. Perimeter, we found a book called Harlem Grown about a true story about across from a school, a city school where there were vacant lots, and someone helped the students plant their gardens, and they had to border them with the wood. And well, that's perimeter.
Right.
It never said area in The Crayon Man. It never said perimeter in Harlem Grown, but it gave us a context to jump into that mathematics. And so that's what I was trying to do over and over in the selection of those books, was to kind of do a balance of, and that allowed me to pick some really good children's literature, like really nice stories.
That's amazing.
And so it was a lot of, reading and selecting what will match this second grade concept or this third grade concept. Students need arrays in second grade. They're going to be doing addition arrays. What can we do? And we use Parade by Donald Cruz, because in a parade, what do? You march in those lines, and we could use that to jump into it. So what we did, once we identified the 20 topics and the 20 pieces of literature, then we expanded those to teach the math concepts. So this is a little different than other math and literature books. A lot of times the math and literature books are kind of revisiting what students already know how to do. So it's like, let's read this book and now we'll graph this. But I already know how to graph, and that's fine. That has its place too. But what we wanted to do is show teachers how they could truly teach the concept through this book. So in each chapter, for each book, there are 2 or 3 lessons that are investigations or explorations that use the context to get that aha moment, to get that insight for students. There are interactive practice tasks. There are lists of problems that students can solve. There are lists of prompts to get kids talking about whatever the concept is. But getting that mathematical thinking out. There are comments and ideas for differentiation if you need to, make this a little more foundational or really challenge some kids. So I guess what I'm trying to say is it's not just like the fluff kind of math and literature. It's not like, here, this is a cute book. We'll read it and we'll do a graph of it. Right. It's like, if you are going to teach arrays in second grade, you can literally pick this up, read this book, and through that book and the activities, you will have taught that concept to your students, which to me is just going to be so much more fun for teachers. They could pull out of a textbook for a short amount of time and use these.
It's nice because it's different, right? I mean, so many times you see textbooks that are kind of, okay, here we're going through this lesson, and now the next day we're going to do this lesson. And, every subject kind of follows a similar pattern. So to be able to pull out and do something different is really exciting. And
even the context feel a little more contrived in a textbook, where these feel more authentic because we're talking about something that happened to a character or some event that happened in the story. They're not real events in a lot of cases, although we do have biographies and books on historical events and some poetry, and we really tried to balance it, some nonfiction books, so it's a real combination, but it feels more authentic than what a textbook feels. And if you guys are in classrooms a lot, the minute when I walk in classrooms, the minute a teacher says, take out your book or passes out a worksheet, you can almost like feel the energy go out of it. But when someone says, come on over here, we're going to read this story, and they start talking, you feel that energy come back. It's like that. The difference in the feeling in the classroom is just dramatic.
Yeah. And I think
that's when kids learn.
Yeah.
When they're engaged, when they're into it, that's when the learning is going to happen.
And we need to pay more attention to that, I think, right now, because, we're back, we're Groundhog Daying all of this, with COVID, I feel like. But, like this idea of like, oh, we're missing things or we're interrupted learning. And okay, this is an opportunity to engage students in ways that make connections across multiple content areas and give the opportunity for extensions to happen at home and to happen in other places and spaces where, and help everyone involved think about and approach this in a different way, because it's not, covering a textbook or like getting through. It's just not realistic, and it doesn't pay as much attention to students' social and emotional needs. Whereas looking at literature, providing context for the situations that they're living with, reading sometimes for me is an escape, right? Like I can go in and be somewhere else or be in a place where I can hug whomever and not wear a mask or whatever,
Run into that situation in the book.
Yeah.
And I was so fortunate to have this amazing team of co-authors in this that really know kids and know classrooms and know math instruction. And we're able to help design these lessons that not only are you talking about like cross-curricular connections, but just it's amazing to see all of the different pieces of math that are brought together through one book. It might be about adding, 2-digit numbers, but it's also about problem solving, and it's also about, communication skills, and it's also, there's just a lot of connected math skills that appear when you're teaching like this, that oftentimes in textbook kind of lessons, it's just the procedural piece. And this kind of allows you to blend it all. It's the content and the practice kind of blended together with lessons like this. So I'm really excited about, and we were able to, do like coaching videos and things, because I really want this to be more than just, here's some cute books, you'll have fun reading them and doing a little something with the kids. I want everyone to see that sees it to know it's substantial mathematics. It just happens to begin with that literature and focus on that literature throughout the lessons.
Yeah.
Awesome.
No, awesome. I am like so excited by that. And I used your math and practice book last year. I had a homeschooled 5th grader. So that was like one of my go-to. I was like, okay, this is where I'm going.
I did a lot of the same thing with my grandchildren last year, doing these daily. We'd get on Zoom each day, and I'd have lessons all planned for them, and it was an interesting experience. But then from Math in Practice that Heinemann is a publisher that is I would call them a professional development publisher, because it's not ever about just here's a bunch of activities. There's those in Math in Practice, it always started with here's the math you're going to be working on. Here's what the standard says. Here's what your kids need to know and do. Here are some ways to get there. And Math by the Book follows that, in that it's a nice second step. It gives teachers more examples, more coaching. There's always the coaching around the outside of each page to say, here's why we did this or whatever. we always want to make an impact on teaching along with giving activities.
Mm-hmm.
I've never felt like it was enough just to give an activity. You guys do professional learning. So, I've been in lots of situations where, teachers will take what I did in professional learning and do it with their students. And some do it amazingly. And others don't do it at all, like I did it with the adults.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll think, with adults, I was questioning and all that, and they were kind of handing it to the kids to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've always felt like it's the support that goes with the activity is as important as the activity.
Absolutely.
Here's what we're doing. Here's why we're doing it. Here's why I'm asking these questions. Here's why I started with this and moved to that next, that kind of thing. And as I said, my co-authors were all like so good about that because they knew the math and they know how kids learn. So it was really a nice experience.
That's great. That sounds amazing. I'm sure you're going to have a lot of success with that because obviously teachers have been waiting for this.
Mm-hmm.
And you put enough out there prior to that they were probably waiting with bated breath. So that's amazing.
Well, I hope so, because I think they'll find it, really fun. I hope they will love math more after teaching through these stories, maybe than they did before, some of them, and maybe a nice entry point for some teachers who weren't sure if they liked teaching math. Those who like it, I think, already know that this will be fun. But maybe it's a way to pull more K-5 teachers, into our little community of
our bubble. That's right.
Fun.
Yes, absolutely. So when we're thinking about ways that teachers can learn more about you, we've mentioned one already, which I know is going to come up here, Math by the Book. And so that is one place if you are looking to find out more information where you can go. I'm going to guess Heinemann as well would be another, but we didn't.
But if you go to that site that's up there, Math by the Book, that's the Heinemann website for it. And just let me say, if teachers just want some samples, you can download some free samples there, and you can also download free. And I think this is really valuable because I know the amount of time I put into this. You can download all 120 books and the math topic connected to them. So I always have teachers saying, well, what's a good book to use for? You can go to this site and you can download that list of by grade level. What are the 20 kindergarten books? What math topic did we use for each one? So that might be helpful to some people listening too.
Yes, not helpful to my husband. He's not going to be happy about that because I'm going to be going through which ones do I not have?
Heidi's library. She needs to have her own personal giant library.
There are some really good ones in there, some new ones in there that I just loved.
Amazing. So what are some other ways that people can find you?
Well, I'm on Twitter, and that's at Sue OConnell Math. So you could follow me there, and I'll tweet out different things or retweet things that I love that other people are doing. My company is Quality Teacher Development. So you can always go there and find out more about the things I've written or, just different things I'm involved in, events, consulting, those types of things. For teachers, we mentioned Math in Practice. I don't think we have a line for this, but if you don't know about that yet, you can always go to mathinpractice.com. These are such simple websites. So, just go to mathinpractice.com, which is another Heinemann site. And it will tell you all about it. And again, little videos, you can download free resources. They always give some things away for free and let you kind of take a look and see what it's all about. So, and you can always go to Heinemann's website and, just browse. There are lots of great math things going on there. Marilyn Burns has a new Listening to Learn, which is amazing. Just kind of go browse and see the kinds of things that are happening at Heinemann in math.
Yeah, no.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for spending some time with us and for bringing new content into the world for elementary teachers, because that is an area where, as we talked about earlier, that really teachers don't feel comfortable. So you're really broadening the spectrum on resources for those teachers.
Well, thanks. It was a pleasure joining you. Thanks so much for inviting me.
Yes, well, thank you.
Good stuff. Good stuff. All right. Wow. That was a long one. So much good stuff to talk about. So exciting.
Always so fun. There's so many things. And, I am like a actual user of materials with my own kids last year. So I highly recommend checking those materials out.
Yes. And next week, no, not next week. Sorry.
Yep.
The new year is throwing me off. Oh, we didn't even say Happy New Year. Happy New Year, everybody.
Happy New Year, everyone. We're not going to say it is 2022 as in again. We're just
right. But on January 19th, we will be having Lebo Valencia with us, and he is going to be talking about math play. He has a new book coming out, so he is going to tell us all about that. And he does a lot of creative work too. So that should be really fun.
We're very excited. Yep. So thank you so much for joining us. We look forward to hearing from you on the comments in Facebook or on YouTube. And we hope that you have a great evening and that you make math for all. Good night.
Thank you.